Okay, so we're going to start off today talking about classes and talking about methods inside of classes. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new class, and that's going to be called Simple Object. Okay, so there are some rules when it comes to naming classes, and those are on our website. So classes should be named, should start with a capital letter. They cannot start with a numeral. So if you try to start with a number inside of there, it just won't let you do it. Okay? Cannot contain any spaces at all or punctuation marks except for the underscore character. So if you wanted to have an underscore character in there for some reason, you can do that, but you can't have a percent sign or a quotation mark or anything like that. And then they should use what we call camel casing. Okay, so camel casing is like a way of getting over the fact that we can't use spaces. So this starts with a capital letter. Simple is one word. The next word starts with a capital letter so that it's easier to read and easier for us to tell that there's more than one word in the name of this class. So that's what we call camel casing. And then it can't be what we call a reserved word. And those words show up in in purple on Eclipse, so we'll see a couple of those right away. So all we're going to do right now is we're going to type in simple object here. We're not going to do anything else. We're not going to have a main method. We're not going to have a superclass or anything like that yet. So we're just going to finish. And then we start out with something very simple like this, okay? So public is a reserved word. And what public means to us is that other classes can use this class, okay? Class, we talked about yesterday. The reason that we're using the word class here is, well, first of all, every file that we create pretty much in Java is going to be a class this year, okay? So you don't have to really worry about that too much. But when we talked about abstraction, we talked about classifying things. And so that's what we're doing here. We're saying, here's a new class of things. Okay, and all of these things are going to be simple object things. All right, so this is the name that we're giving that class. All right, classes are defined inside of blocks, and so we have a bracket that starts that block, and we have a bracket that ends that block. Okay, so everything inside of there is a part of simple object. Inside of there, we're going to create a method. Okay. So methods are like subroutines, okay? And what methods do is they tell us what an object can do, all right? So we can tell the object to do whatever the name of this method is going to be. And the way that we print that out, or the way that we code that in, is usually we use the word public again, all right? And then the next thing we do is we're going to say void, and then we're going to give this thing a name. So this is going to be our simple method. All right. Methods also require a set of parentheses, and methods are also blocks of code. So we're going to have a starting block, and when I hit return, all right, or enter, it automatically puts the ending block in for me. All right? So that's that. All right? Methods have rules for naming them as well, and they are pretty much the exact same as the rules for naming classes, except they start with a lowercase letter. Okay? So still no spaces, can't start with a number. You can have numbers in there, still no punctuation. Okay? And, you know, still using camel casing, still can't be reserved words. Okay? Right now we see 3 reserved words that we're recognizing already. So public is a reserved word. We can't call a method public. Class is a reserved word. We can't call our class or our method class. And we can't call it void either. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Okay? So basically what we've looked at so far is creating a class, and then creating a method inside of that class. And if we go over to our website here, we see that there are these rules for naming methods. Okay, pretty much the same as the rules for naming classes, except that it should start with a lowercase letter. And then also we have here the different parts of a method. Okay, The access modifier, in this case, is public. That tells us that other classes can tell us to either do or ask us to do this method. Okay? The return type is void, and that means to us basically like a void method is like a command. Okay? It's like we're telling this object, this simple object, to do this thing. Okay? Later on, we'll be able to put something other than void there. All right? And we'll be able to, it'll be like asking a question. Like, hey, student, how old are you? Okay? That would be a method. All right? And then it needs an identifier. How do we identify, oops, that's not doing what I want it to do. How do I identify this method from other methods? So this one is called simple method. Okay, then it needs a set of parentheses. You can also have a parameter list. We'll see an example of that later, but this one is empty. So parameters go inside of the parentheses. Don't worry too much about that. Okay, then it needs the braces. Oops, that's not good. Sorry about that. So then it needs the block braces, and then we want to add some instructions inside of there. So let's go back to Eclipse right now, and we're going to go ahead and add an instruction inside of our simple method. Okay? So let's just go system.out.print, and I guess we'll just have it say hello world. All right, and so that's our first method right there. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a program, and I make a delineation between object classes and program classes just to kind of make things, I think, easier for you guys. Okay, so simple object here, simple object doesn't have a main method. Okay, and so to me, it's an object and not a program. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make a simple program. So I'm going to make a new class. I'm going to call this one simple program. And the thing for me that makes it a program and not an object is that I'm going to have it include a main method. Okay, that means that I can run this thing because Eclipse is looking for that main method when it wants to run a program. So I'm going to finish that. And this one now starts with us having a main method. Okay? So we said that methods have like 7 parts. Okay? Public and static are both access modifiers. It tells us who can use this method. Alright? Void again tells us that this is a command. So we're just going to tell simple program do main. Alright? Main is the identifier. Okay, so that's how we identify this method. We know it's called main. Here are its parentheses. And this one has a set of parameters. Okay, so it has something inside of the parentheses, but we're not really worried about that right now. Okay, so I'm just going to say those are parameters, but we don't really care about it. Okay? It has its braces, and if I click there, we see that what's inside of the main method. Okay, so right now there's just a comment in there. Nothing really for us to worry about. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that comment just because I think it's ugly. Alright? So what we want now is we want to write instructions. These are the instructions that the program is going to do when we tell it to run. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to make one of these simple objects inside of our simple program. And the way that we make an object is with the reserved word new. Okay? So new tells the language, hey, we're going to make an object. And then we have to tell it which type of object we want to make. So the type that we want to make is a simple object. And then we have to give it a set of parentheses, and we'll kind of explain what's going on with that a little bit later. All right? So if I just left it like this, the language would say, okay, you can do that. All right. But it doesn't really help me too much because simple object, I have to tell it to do something. I want the object to have to do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of that semicolon there, and I'm going to put a dot, and that dot right there is called the dot operator. Okay, so the dot operator is the way that we tell objects to do something that they can do. All right, and so we're going to say dot do your simple method. So that's how we tell it. That's how we tell the simple object to do its simple method. All right. So I'm just going to separate these so that we can actually. I'm going to do it this way, so we can kind of see both of them at the same time a little bit. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to run the simple program. So I'm going to save both of these and then run it. And there we get the console saying hello world, which isn't really different from what you did yesterday, but it's definitely doing it a different way from what you did yesterday. All right, so let me just kind of review what we've done so far. So far we've created a simple object that can do a simple method. Okay. Then over here in the simple program we put a main method, so that when we run it in Eclipse, it goes into the main method of this simple program and does this instruction. So what it does here is says, make me one of these simple objects, and then tell it to do its simple method. That goes over here and says, oh, I'm a simple object. You want me to do the simple method? Okay, well that instruction is to say to print out hello world, and then that's exactly what happened.